The novel, GHURABA, is a life-changing story that revolves around two main characters, a girl who is deviated and far from religion and a young man who is committed to deen and is seen fully involved in work for the nation. This novel has been written by summing up true life stories of some people with some additions and subtractions. Inshallah, this novel will act as medicine for the wounded and hurt hearts who have been yearning for their Lord since long. About the author. Dr. Binte Islam is a medical doctor. She had never thought of writing any book, but the love for the oppressed and hurt nation compelled her to hold a pen. No doubt her every word was from Allah's help and assistance only. This book is dedicated to those blessed souls who have set on the journey to paradise, seeking only the pleasure of their Lord. And thus on walking this walk, along with their feet their hearts got injured too. Still they carried on with their bleeding souls, fleeing to their Lord, with an intention to be of those strangers for whom our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "So good tidings for the strangers." Special thanks to those who remained there as strong support. Especially my beloved brother, who proved a shield all along. Start of Chapter 1. Katie! Katie! Bella entered the room nearly shouting. Katie, who was standing before the dressing table applying eyeliner with precocity, became alarmed. "What's the matter?" She looked at her, asking repulsively. Her deep black eyes grew even more beautiful with anger. "Why can't you ever make a sane entry? Why do you always barge in shrieking like an ambulance siren? Seriously, you almost gave me a heart attack." Katie refocused to the mirror with a frown on her face. Bella, who had forgotten the urgent matter she had come for, kept staring at her with an impish, static gaze. "Madam, how many people do you intend to fall for you today?" She teased her with mischievous eyes. "Only Jamal," Katie timidly smiled and replied boldly. Her lips always used to wear a shy smile with the mention of Jamal's name. Jamal was her boyfriend. Katie could vividly remember that beautiful evening when she first met Jamal on a trip with her friends during the last semester in Harvard University. "So you belong to Pakistan too?" Jamal had asked her smiling. Katie reminisced. "Too? What do you mean by that?" Katie interrupted him, cutting him short. At that time, she was seriously annoyed with Bella, thinking she must have leaked her details to him. Bella would pay for this breach of trust, Katie thought to herself. "I am a Pakistani too." "Oh really? Is that so?" Katie inquired. "Yes, absolutely. My father is a Pakistani. When he came to the USA for his studies, he married my mother who is an American citizen. So this makes me a citizen of both countries." Jamal replied beamingly. Katie could not keep herself from smiling now. Jamal was so damn handsome and his smile made him so attractive that anybody could have an instant crush on him. Katie was also badly infatuated with him in the very first meeting. But she did not reveal her feelings to him. After all, she was Katie, the burning light for moths to gather, the princess whose hand many royals desired, the enchantress whose spell bounded people. She had been modestly rejecting everyone. How could she herself succumb to Jamal's spell so easily now? Even Jamal was captivated and charmed by Katie's beauty. He had seen many girls in his life, but no one had been able to mesmerize him like her. She was delicate like a crystal doll, shining from inside out and enamoring him at first sight. Unlike Katie, he was unable to hide his emotions. Or perhaps he didn't want to. "So Jamal Jason, it seems you have finally found the true love of your life," thought Jamal, with his steady gaze full of admiration fixated on Katie. Katie was wearing a dark red t-shirt and a pair of blue jeans. Her thick black hair, which she had left open, reached all the way down her back and accentuated her snow-like, fair complexion. She had put on slight makeup, which further highlighted her beauty. It was becoming hard for Jamal to decide what was more attractive, her big beautiful eyes or her black silky hair swaying in the breeze. No doubt, she was strikingly beautiful like a queen. It was absolutely certain that Jamal would try to win her heart at any cost. Shortly after their initial introduction, they opened up to each other and their frequent discussions became quite frank. Maybe the reason was that the feelings of attraction were mutual. Love seemed to be in the air. Even after returning to the hostel that night, Katie was still immersed in the beautiful moments of the day. She had noticed that Jamal could not take his eyes away from her the whole time. How could he take his eyes off me? Has anyone been able to avoid my spell of beauty before? She told herself proudly and pleasingly. After that eventful day, they started meeting each other on a daily basis. They had already exchanged their phone numbers on the very first meeting, and now they were getting closer with each passing day. During the day, they used to hang out together or text each other, and during the night they called each other and chatted until dawn. This went on for 6 months. By then, their relationship had come into the limelight. Everyone felt envious of this handsome couple, who were literally inseparable. In fact, so inseparable that they forgot the difference between vice and virtue, having crossed the limits of sin and not regretting it even once. What's the harm in this, she once asked herself, suppressing the questions of morality which her conscience had brought up. After all, we are going to legalize our relationship by marrying soon, so how could it be wrong? This went on for a while, until one day, Katie met Miriam. She was her roommate Farhat's friend and had come to meet her, but unfortunately Farhat had gone out of the hostel that day due to some work. Therefore, Katie had to welcome Miriam, which she regretted later. "Pardon me, I do not have anything to give for charity." Katie opened the door and replied to the woman standing in front of her, who was wearing a black abaya which covered her from head to toe. And then she slammed the door on her face without giving her the opportunity to say anything. Ugh! These beggars! They're everywhere! She turned back, murmuring to herself when she again heard the knock on the door. Ugh! What's wrong? Didn't you understand the first time? Katie almost shouted irritably when she opened the door. At first, that veiled girl was surprised at Katie's rude behavior, but then she replied with great patience. Is Farhat there, in the room? What? Katie was shocked. I asked if Farhat is in the room? She replied again in the same calm manner. Who are you? Katie had recovered slightly. She was now ashamed over her behavior. She must be a friend of Farhat, Katie thought. My name is Miriam, and I am Farhat's friend. Oh. Okay. I thought you were here on behalf of some organization asking for donations. Please come inside. Farhat has gone to the market. She should be back soon. You can wait for her in the room, Katie said to Miriam while fully opening the door. The room was quite a mess. Things were kept in a very disorganized manner. Books and clothes were cluttered everywhere. There were 2 single beds on one side of the room. The beds were so messy that they portrayed the picture of an open-air, clothes market. A fallen lamp on the side table, heaps of clothes in front of the open closet, and the disorganized books presented evidence of a recent calamity. As if someone took out their anger over the things in the room. Miriam was a bit shocked when she entered the room. It was only her eyes that Katie could see through the black veil, and the look of surprise in her eyes made Katie feel embarrassed, and she clarified rather sheepishly, Our room is not usually like this. I was actually looking for my favorite dress for my evening outing, which I was unable to find. Miriam uncovered her face and smiled at Katie slightly. I can understand. Katie really admired Miriam's affectionate smile. There was an unusual attraction in her style that left her awestruck. She always felt irked by the religious lot. If these extremists had a chance, they would label everyone else as infidel and would throw people at the doorsteps of hell even before the day of judgment had arrived, Katie always used to think. But Miriam had such a demeanor that Katie found her aggression being turned into meekness and friendliness. When will Farhat arrive? She should be back soon. Katie realized that she was getting late for the parlor. She quickly looked at the wall clock. Oh shit! I am very late. You please sit down, I have to leave. She quickly grabbed her purse and her car keys and rushed towards the door. Kala, will you go outside like this? What? Katie replied while turning back. She was left in shock. I asked, will you go outside like this? You are a Muslim girl, and a Muslim girl never goes out while dressing like this. She said this in a very polite manner, but it had hit Katie like a bullet. She was wearing a sleeveless shirt with tights. Miss Miriam. Everyone calls me Katie here, and you'd better call me with this name. She spoke quite furiously for being called by her real name. Do you know who Hazrat Kala was? No. And I do not wish to hear a lecture on this either. It would be better if you mind your own business. She was enraged, and the soft corner she had for Miriam a little while back was gone. One thing more, you don't need to preach to me. I cannot wear this tent-shaped dress like you and pretend to be righteous in front of other people. There should be modesty in a person's heart. Wearing sacks and roaming in the streets of America won't increase your faith. If you are so righteous and chaste, why do you even leave your home to go outside? In fact, why did you come to USA in the first place? It is just hypocrisy on your part. Kala kept on speaking in the same breath without giving Miriam the chance to speak. The hatred for the religious people which had been growing in her heart for years was finally poured out on Miriam like lava from an erupting volcano. Miriam was looking back at Kala with shock during the whole time while Kala was raging against her. She probably hadn't even imagined that she would react like that. Kala had truly misbehaved with her. Miriam put on her veil silently, and walked away without saying anything. When Kala came back from the parlor after getting her facial done, Farhat called her. I'll be late today. A friend of mine is here. In fact, I am at her place. Farhat was in a rush. Oh nice. Which friend? Asked Kala apprehensively. She was definitely talking about Miriam. She was now feeling regretful for her behavior. What if she had shown a little self-restraint? Now this will lead to uneasiness in her friendship with Farhat. Ugh, Katie. When will you stop overreacting over petty issues? She quietly cursed herself. Her name is Miriam. There was no sign of anger in Farhat's voice. Why is she not upset with me? After all, I had rudely scolded her friend. Kala kept thinking. You don't know her. She arrived in USA a few days ago. I told her about the hostel and told her to meet you, but maybe she wasn't able to meet you because of the name. I told her your real name by mistake. Oh, okay. That's fine. Kala was confused with what to reply. After hanging up the phone, she sat there for a long time wondering why Miriam hadn't told Farhat that she had already met her. If she had been in her place, she would not have left the hostel silently but would have definitely retorted word for word, and then would have called Farhat to berate her for sending her to such a person. Anyway, it's good. The trouble is over now. She mumbled to herself. Kala checked the wall clock. It was 6 in the evening. She had to quickly get ready for the night's outing. Tonight, she was treating all her friends for topping the final semester exams. And for that, she had booked tables in a nearby club on everyone's insistence. She went towards the dressing table in order to get ready. Bella will be here soon, she had just thought to herself as she applied eyeliner, when Bella suddenly entered the room reiterating Katie's name loudly. If your drama is over, shall we leave? Kala inquired, quite amused with Bella's mischievous glances. She knew that today, she was looking more beautiful than other days. Kala was wearing a red maxi and had thrown her silky straight hair onto one side. Her hair was adorned with a string of diamond beads which were gifted to her by Jamal. In short, she was looking like a queen of a royal palace. Yes, Your Highness, as you command. After all, this is your big day. Bella was leading her outside like a royal slave girl, leaning down to gesture for her to walk ahead. Kala could no longer control her laughter and after locking her hand into Bella's hand, she stepped outside. As soon as both of them sat inside the car, Kala received Jamal's call. Hello? Katie. I'm really sorry, I won't be able to make it today. You guys enjoy the party. What happened, Jamal? Are you not feeling alright? Kala became worried. Yeah, I'm just feeling a bit off today. His tone carried a strange restlessness. Please tell me what happened to you. Nothing much, Katie, it's just that I feel like I have a slight fever. You don't worry, I will take medicine and get some rest. I'll feel better soon. No, I am coming to your place right now. Bella, who was sitting on the front passenger seat, had also become upset. She asked what happened with a hand gesture. But Kala signaled for her to remain quiet. No, no. Please don't come to my place. I told you that I will take medicine and will be fine soon. Do not ruin your big day because of me. You must host that party. But without you, how can I? He had hung up before Kala could finish her sentence. She could not believe that Jamal hung up on her. For a few seconds, she just stared at the cell phone in her hand. Kala was sure that he was hiding something from her. He must be seriously ill. Kala had tears floating in her eyes. She threw the cell phone on the dashboard and turned the car in the direction of Jamal's apartment. Please, can you tell me what happened? Bella asked with a concerned look on her face. Jamal is not well, she replied, whilst speeding towards his apartment. What happened to him? Bella became even more worried. I don't know, but he is not fine. Kala mumbled the last words as if speaking to herself. She could never see Jamal in distress. She loved him intensely. Crazily intense. She could not even bear the thought of a thorn prick to him. She felt extremely panicky. On top of that, his apartment was quite far away, and with each passing moment her anxiety increased. Well, don't you worry, everything will be fine. I am sure he's only slightly unwell. Let's stop at a pharmacy to buy some medicine for him. Bella was now trying to pacify her. She knew quite well that Jamal was Katie's weakness and that she would do anything for him. Katie would continue to worry unless she could see Jamal fine and healthy. But still, she unsuccessfully tried to calm her best friend down. Oh yes, the pharmacy. Why did that not cross my mind earlier? Kala cursed herself and turned the car towards the market. Bella became more worried for Kala. Jamal was her childhood friend and Kala was her closest friend. She knew both of them quite well. Bella knew that Jamal would probably be fine, but her friend would definitely pass out before reaching Jamal's apartment. Here's the store, Bella gestured towards a signboard. With a sudden jerk, Kala stopped the car immediately. Oh Katie, please calm down, you were about to get us crashed. Bella looked at Kala feeling miffed. But Kala seemed completely shocked, looking towards a nearby restaurant in disbelief. At first, Bella could not understand what was going on, but when she followed Kala's gaze and looked into the restaurant, she could not believe what she saw. Near the front window, she could see Jamal smiling, seated across a gorgeous girl with brown hair whose hands were in his hands. He was slipping a glamorous diamond ring on her finger. Katie rushed out of the car at lightning speed. Before Bella could understand the situation and react accordingly, she had reached the table where Jamal was sitting with a pretty girl. So this girl is the fever you were talking about? She slapped him hard across the face as she shouted with a maddening rage. He was startled by the unexpected arrival of Kala. He never imagined that she would show up like this. Tears rolled down Kala's cheeks as she tried to pull off the diamond beads which he had given to her before, literally throwing them back at him in disgust. Jamal Jason. You treacherous man. Beauty worshipper. Didn't your lust get satisfied by ruining one woman's life? Did you have no heart to go hunting after another one like a street dog? Now stay happy in your dream world of false hopes and love, Kala yelled bitterly as she tossed everything on the table in aggression, preparing to leave. But as soon as she turned to walk away, her footsteps froze as she felt the firm grip of a hand on her shoulders and her name echoed in her ears. By then, the scene had caught the attention of nearly everyone sitting in the restaurant that evening. Wait, girl, Jamal replied in a sarcastically aggressive tone, as he recovered from the shock of being caught red-handed. There's no need to vex so much. It takes two to tango. Neither did I force you to be with me nor did I ever drag you into my apartment. You came by your own accord towards me. It was all mutual. I never raped you to give you a reason to blabber so much here today. Kala felt the ground beneath her feet slipping away. She was astonished by what he was saying. She had repeatedly ignored her condemning conscience ever since the beginning and had crossed every limit for Jamal's happiness. She disregarded the whole concept of virtue and sin only for him, and today he was absolving himself from blame? Kala, from the corner of her eyes, saw the overly mocking crowd eyeing them as if they had found a good chance of entertainment that evening. She could see the mob laughing at her stupidity. I was fed up of this relationship such a long time ago. I had tried a million times to get rid of you, but it was you who kept clinging on to me, uttered Jamal, who was now barraging her with deeply venomous words, each word wounding her already weak soul like a poisoned spear. I admit that you are a beautiful and intelligent woman, but I do not love you. What should I do about it? Kala was left weeping and she couldn't believe what she had heard. She questioned herself, he doesn't love me? She wondered if he was the same guy who used to confess that he could never sleep without talking to her, who would remain restless till he saw her face, and that her voice brought life to him. She felt that the world was collapsing around her as the grief in her chest made it harder for her to breathe under the burden of sorrow and self-pity. She was now lost in her embarrassment and shame. Oblivious to the surroundings, she could now only hear a loud incomprehensible sound in the background. The scene became blurred to her, as if she was fainting with her grief. There was too much noise, but her ability to discern had diminished, or maybe, her brain had become numb to the situation. Not knowing where to go, she headed straight out of the restaurant and started walking towards the main road. She was now limping across the road like a zombie with no soul, just a body moving aimlessly, misbalanced by the burden of life and mockery of fellow mates. Katie! Would you marry Jamal Jason? He was kneeling before her with a diamond ring. Kala flashbacked. She was now limping along the edge of the road. I'll think about it, Kala giggled while rolling her eyes with mischief. The cold night had grown darker in its depth and the cars on the road were flash-blinding Kala's static gaze. You will have to marry me at any cost, whether happily or not. Jamal was laughing as he slipped the ring on her finger. Echoes of their laughter had filled the whole garden. She was having flashbacks, one after the other until she was jolted back to reality by a loud shout coming from a car that was speeding towards her. Hey, do you want to die? She was saved by a moment's delay of being run over by a car. Die? She questioned her perplexed self. Yes, I wish to die. She replied loudly as she turned desperately in the opposite direction. Kala was hit by a car. The rushing car noises stopped as a screeching sound filled the air and her body flew onto the middle of road. Miss Katie! Miss Katie! Kala could hear a distant anonymous voice. Maybe someone was referring to her. She tried to open her eyes but found it unbearable due to the intense brightness of the light pouring into the room. Oh Allah! Thank you! Thanks a million! She could hear two indistinct familiar voices reiterating the statement. Very good. Try again, she could hear the same anonymous voice encouraging her again. Kala had succeeded in opening her eyes fully this time. It had taken her 5 minutes to do so. Although her eyes were wide open, the intense light was still painful for her to look at. She was definitely in a hospital room. Standing right in front of her was a middle-aged man who was wearing a white overall with a stethoscope hung around his neck. He was a doctor. There was a girl standing next to him, a few steps away. Who was she? Kala tried hard to recall the familiar face from her weak memory. Farhat. Yeah, she was Farhat. But she had heard the voices of two women. As she tried hard to think, her head started aching. I want to sleep, murmured Kala, looking at the doctor. The doctor, who was still staring at her cautiously, relaxed upon hearing Kala speak. Thankfully you have gained back your consciousness. You can sleep as long as you wish, that's fine by me. But maybe you should first ask for the permission of your friends who have spent all day and night standing next to you in concern. He replied with smile on his face looking at Farhat. Farhat who, up to this point, had been thanking Allah constantly, headed towards Kala with an affectionate smile on her face. Katie! Thanks to Allah that you have gained consciousness. We were so scared. Do you know that you've been in a coma for a week? Your skull and right leg got fractured. We were so busy praying all the time for you. She was blabbering and crying whilst holding the hands of Kala. Kala felt the tears fall on her hands. Dr. Peter has really helped us a lot. He is one of the best doctors in this hospital. She looked at Dr. Peter with appreciation. Let's leave her to rest now. We have got our entire lives to talk, Dr. Peter gently nodded at Farhat. Kala gradually opened her aching eyes, carefully trying to figure out where she was and how she got there. How was she still alive? And what was Farhat saying about her skull and the fracture? Her head started aching even more severely now. I want to sleep, stammering, she repeated her words. Yeah. You take rest. Farhat softly loosened her hand from Kala's grip and left the room with Dr. Peter. You must help your friend come out of this situation. The sooner that happens, the sooner she will get well. Willpower plays a huge role in the healing process of any patient. If she doesn't have the will to get better, she might never regain health, exclaimed Dr. Peter with concern, while they stood in the busy main hall. Yes, I'll keep your advice in mind. Good, he left with a content smile. Farhat came back to the room and stared at Kala with concern. She was sleeping calmly, so Farhat left the room to call someone from her cell phone. When Kala woke up, she found herself in the room alone with a lovely basket of fresh fruits by her side on the table. Farhat must have left them, thought Kala to herself as the dusk surrounded her in the cheerless room through the window. The window of the room was open, showing the lawn beautifully decorated with flowers. The flowers were also in blues to match the dull evening, or perhaps it was from within Kala that everything seemed so gloomy. The arrival of dusk made it even more dismal. She tried to sit up but felt that she couldn't move her right leg much, due to the heavy plaster. Grieving over her miserable situation, she leaned back on the pillow to sit. Oh Allah! Why did I survive? Why didn't you let me die? She couldn't hold herself anymore and started crying anxiously, hiding her face with her hands. Kala kept weeping like that for a long time. She had never cried so desperately before. She had actually never loved someone so deeply. Why did he do this to me? I forgot myself for him. He was my sun and moon. It was for him that I was alive, mumbled Kala, as she started sobbing again. When she got tired after all the crying, she laid down with her head rested on the pillow and started staring at the ceiling with an empty gaze, lost in her own complexities of thoughts. Everything changed in just a few moments. It really took just a few moments. Can life be harsher? I, Katie Solomon, the yearning of every gaze, conqueror of all hearts, desire of every eye, winner of every race of her life, lost the race of love. Maybe there is no such thing as love. No one loves anybody. Maybe every man is like that. He is seeking brilliant among brilliants. He neither loves anyone, nor does he try. He buys every new face. Yes, this is the reality. Men are insincere, she answered herself, when Farhat entered the room. Hey, when did you wake up? Just now, she quickly replied. It's good you slept. How do you feel now? She empathetically asked Kala, as she sat down on a chair beside her. Kala was trying to control her anguish, but this question made her lose it again, and she replied with poetic rhetoric. Tell him not to blanket his lashes with dreamy veils. Nothing can be achieved by making houses along the river bays. Often, I hear, this very talk from the stars being sleepless, is useless for someone who departed far. The chest will get empty in pure blood, the eyes will weep deeply. Nothing is achieved by loving the world, insincere and cheap. Tears floated in Kala's eyes thick and fast as she stared at the ceiling fade away. Farhat was not expecting such an answer from Kala. She saw that Katie's eyes were wet with tears. Katie had surely been crying for long. Farhat started blaming herself now for leaving Katie alone like this. Her downhearted attitude began to worry her. She had never seen her even distressed, and now she had begun to cry too. Katie! Please try to forget everything. That man doesn't deserve your tears, Farhat reassured her whilst gently holding her hand. But Katie continued to weep deeply. Farhat, she exclaimed without looking into her eyes. Can you call Mariam? Mariam? Okay. Why not? She was confused but didn't find it appropriate to question her further. Now? Kala spoke with such a pitiable tone that led Farhat to immediately dial in Mariam without thinking for another moment. A little while later, there was a knock on the door. The handle moved down, unlocking the hinge. As the door slowly creaked open, a girl wearing a black abaya and veil appeared from behind it and she gracefully walked into the room. Kala, who was still grieving in her situation at this point, welcomed Mariam with a slightly mortified smile. She had feared that Mariam won't come since she had a genuine reason not to. You two can talk while I go and fetch something from the cafe to eat, Farhat said as she rose from the chair and left the room with a million questions dancing in her mind. She had figured out that Katie wished to be with Mariam alone. Mariam was interrupted by a nurse in the doorway who had come in to give the night medicine. Oh, Miss Mariam is here. How are you? The nurse greeted her with eagerness and shook her hand. Kala was struck with surprise. Had Mariam visited her when she was in the coma? Who was that girl? An angel from heaven? Kala's insides were churning with embarrassment. She remembered well how she had mistreated Mariam and her eyes swelled with tears once again. But she hid them, trying to control her emotions. Mariam had read the expressions on Kala's face after seeing the nurse's enthusiasm upon meeting her. Yeah, I couldn't show up due to some particular reasons, Mariam smiled back at the nurse. She had interpreted, through Kala's facial expressions, that she was astonished by this news. After a brief conversation, the nurse gave Kala her night medicines and then left the room. Mariam and Kala were now alone. Mariam closed the door, unveiled her face and sat down next to Kala. How are you now, Katie? Mariam broke the uncomfortable silence between them. Call me Kala, not Katie. She looked at Mariam remorsefully, as if to compensate for her misbehavior shown at their last meeting. Mariam smiled in reciprocation to her gesture. Her smile was very captivating, full of affection, making everyone her admirer. Mariam. Please forgive me. I was. Kala couldn't complete her sentence as her voice got heavy with deep emotions of grief and embarrassment. Kala, I have forgotten everything. Please. You should also try to forget it, replied Mariam, firmly tightening her grip on Kala's hand, which she was holding gently. Kala had expected the exact same behavior from her. Please don't refer to me so formally, it makes me feel estranged. She was timidly smiling. Fine, if you don't like that, inshallah I'll refer you less formally. She had liked what Kala requested. Kala smiled back at her. This was the first time she had smiled after a very long time. Alhamdulillah. Our princess has smiled, Mariam remarked at Kala with glittery eyes. Kala felt as if a lot of weight was removed from her weak, injured shoulders. She felt very unburdened. Mariam. Why did this happen to me? She inquired with a sea of tears in her eyes. She couldn't stop that storm of grief from raging up again and again. I have many questions in my mind to ask you and they are driving me insane. Kala. We do not understand Allah's wisdom in many matters. Hence, when we fail to get our desired goal, we often lose heart. And at times we start complaining about Allah. But with the passage of time, we realize the hidden wisdom in it. And then we also realize that we were such fools to panic. But I never understood the wisdom behind any trouble, Kala replied softly. You must not have paid heed to it then. As long as our heart is blind, we won't visualize anything. When we do not get anything, our Lord has seen harm for us in it, so He moves us away from it. Kala was listening to Mariam speak without blinking her eyes. And there are times when we lose things due to our own mistakes. We get so blindly indulged in attaining that thing, that we adopt every dark path for it. Do you know what dark paths are? Kala shook her head in a robotic manner to reply, no. Dark paths are the trails of disobedience to Allah, echoed Mariam. Kala was shocked to hear all this. She could recall all of Jamal's requests, fair and unfair, that she had fulfilled because she feared that she might lose him otherwise. Such paths are so profoundly dark that the human eyes are unable to see if the steps are actually going towards an abyss or towards a peaceful place. Do you know why that is? What could Kala have replied? She was shocked by her truthful words. She stared at Miriam in awe. Because they are not the right paths, Kala. There is no guiding light there. Isn't the light meant for guidance? Then why would Allah's light lead you to the wrong destination? Miriam had replied to her own asked question, upon Kala's silence. This was the first time in her life that Kala had experienced such a deep conversation. She was dumbfounded. After a few moments of thinking, Kala questioned in a soft, shaky voice, "Whenever I loved anything, it never stayed with me. Does that mean I always chose the wrong path? Maybe, or it could be that you might have loved that thing to an extent that you neglected the love of the one who made that very thing. What does that mean?" Kala looked at her inquisitively. "This might mean that you had forgotten your Lord who bestowed you with that blessing. You might have crossed the limits of love to an extent that you might have given your Creator's right of love to your desired thing. And, yet, among the people are those who take other than Allah as equals to Him. They love them as they should love Allah. But those who believe are stronger in love for Allah. Do you know whose words these are? These are the verses of your and my Lord, in the Quran." Kala was so astounded that she didn't even dare to blink. Had Allah said this all? She would have known if only she had ever tried to understand the Quran. "But, it's not like I don't love Allah," she spoke in her defense. Miriam smiled and replied, "Kala, did you safeguard the love of Allah or your lover? The one you safeguarded more, you loved him more. The one for whom you made the other angry, that love actually won over the other. You paralleled your Lord with someone in your due love, Kala, when you were supposed to love Allah the most." Tears started flooding in her eyes. Truly, she had never loved Allah. In fact, what she had been denoting as Allah's love was merely a joke. Miriam remained silent for a while. And Kala kept thinking with her gaze lowered. Then Miriam picked off from where she had left the conversation. "Kala, do you know when we do this, we don't only lose Allah but we also take ourselves a step closer to the hell fire. But see, despite our stubbornness, Allah still tries to protect us from hell fire. He does this by taking away the thing that was about to make us jump into that devastating pit." Kala looked at her all muddled up. "Miriam, this is so hard for me to understand. Please, can you simplify it?" she replied with a confused look on her face. "Okay. Let me explain to you with an example," Miriam began. A heart that has faced rejections and betrayals is bound to feel tired at some point in life. Tired, hurt, torn, wounded. How to walk forward when you feel the blood dribbling from the wounds? Wounds that are awarded by your own loved ones. Oh Lord, I had set out on this journey for you. Set out in a way that I left my every desire behind. Everything that holds one back, I left it for you. And stood up to be a means of strength for the ones who have chosen you. But got rejections there too, my Lord. I do not know where people like your Prophet's companions have gone. Breaking hearts has become a norm here. Tired and hurt, I call upon you. Take me to the road that leads me to you. Now that the destiny is very near, I've started to lose strength. I feel sleepy and weak. My painful eyes do not want to open up anymore. Please be my strength and let me see victory when I've reached this far. Give me strength, O Lord, so that I too am able to see my conquest of Mecca after my period of circulated. O Lord, only in you I have hope and only in you I have faith." Diary of a Prisoner, a Bleeding Soul. End of Chapter 1.